Oh, wonderful.
In our feature presentation tonight,
If everyone will get a seat, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll have the city council come to order, please. I have some sad news this evening. Our sympathy goes out to retired Councilman Larry Willigis and his family. His wife Sandy passed away yesterday, and I'm sorry I don't have any more information than that. And I'd like to introduce the Reverend Kim Canyon from the Destin United Methodist Church. He's going to lead us in prayer tonight. If you'll come up to the podium. Everyone, please stand.
Would you please join me for prayer? Almighty and eternal God, we pause to give you thanks for the gifts of life and health and strength. We thank you for the simple freedoms that we enjoy every day, but particularly on this day for the freedom to live in a country that is still free. Thank you for the framers of these United States of America and the men and women who have kept it that way. I pray for the leaders of our nation and our state, and now for our city. Thank you for the sacrifice of time and energy that they make to lead our city and community. I pray for the family of Sandy Willigis tonight, that they would know your comfort and your peace. I pray now that we may lead in all humility and that we might know your wisdom and your care and direction. Bless this meeting tonight in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
amen.
Thank you. Councilmember Marler, would you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a special proclamation tonight, and I would like to ask Mr. Maddox Haley's if he would come to the front with his principal, Al Gardner. Tonight we are presenting a proclamation to Maddox, honoring him for his outstanding feat and accomplishment, getting a perfect score on the Florida Standards Assessment Test. Maddox is a third grader at the Destin Elementary School. He is the son of Angelia and Eric from Destin. He is also the grandson of our very own Miss Lisa Frith from the Destin Community Center, who is also here tonight. If you could all join me, excuse me. Whereas the Florida Standards adopted the State Board of Education, emphasized preparation for college and career success, and whereas the Florida Standards Assessment, called the FSA, measures the new Florida standards, and whereas the FSA replaced most of the Florida Comprehensive Assessment tests and includes language, arts, and math exams for students in grade 3 to 10. And whereas Maddox Haley's, a third grade student at Destin Elementary School, scored 100% on the FSA test, the only one out of 2,462 third graders in the county to get a perfect score. And whereas he maintained straight A's and good citizenship to his fellow classmates. And whereas during the school year, Maddox can be found on the field or court around Destin. He is a quarterback for the Destin Dolphins football team. He also plays in the Destin Community Center's basketball league and selection to the 2016 Destin Little League All-Star team. And whereas Maddox loves to spend any extra time fishing, hunting, and traveling with his family, he set many goals for his future, such as attending Florida State University, playing professional football, and following in his dad's footsteps as a fisherman. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Scott Fisher, on behalf of the Destin City Council, city staff, and citizens of Destin, do hereby acknowledge Maddox's accomplishments and do wholeheartedly extend our appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity to celebrate such an outstanding young individual. And could I ask Maddox's family to please come forward? We even have a granddad here, and I didn't want him to have to stand for the entire presentation, so we'll bring them up at the end. Maddox? Anything you want to say?
No, not really.
No, not really. Is there anything you're not good at? Here's a really tough question. Which member of your family did you inherit the brains from? Are you pointing at Granddad? Good answer. No. We have a special presentation this evening from Mr. Buck Lowry of Gulf Power on the tree trimming policy. If you could come forward.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, how you doing? City Council members? Bernard Johnson with Gulf Power, and to my left is Jonathan Gates, who's the engineering supervisor with Gulf Power, and this is Mr. Buck Lauer, our line clearing specialist. So he's the one that keeps tabs. And I know this tree trimming issue came up primarily in regards to the project going down on 4th Avenue, and so we want to address those questions and see what y'all have in that regard. Or tree trimming issues as a whole. I mean, not necessarily be about that project alone, but.
What is the pleasure of the council? Do you have questions, or Councilmember Dixon?
Yes, thank you for being here tonight. I was one of the main ones who raised concern about this, as I live very close to this project. I was extremely disappointed to see that the amount of trees that were taken out for this project, the pump station that's being done off of Benning Drive. One thing is that we had some like 40-foot trees that were basically taken out, just gone, and I hate to see that. One of the things I wanted to make sure is that Gulf Power and the people that work for them are aware that they're not out in the country when they're doing this. They're in a city, and we value our trees, and I don't know what the process is, to be honest with you, as far as permits that might need to be pulled for you even to take trees out, and I, as I said, was one of the ones who raised the main objection about this. But about a year and a half ago, I guess it was, that, and I'll get to my question here in just a little bit, but about a year and a half ago, they were trimming trees across the street from my house. I don't have any power lines that are running directly, in front of my home, but they were trimming 8 foot from around, I guess, what you would consider to be the main power wire. And then for some reason, the neighbor across the street, I know the reason, because he didn't like to see the gaps that the tree cutting made. And by the way, I do understand that you got to keep the trees out of the power lines. I do understand that. But basically, they had to have an 8-foot clearance is what was told to them at the time they were cutting the trees across the street from the house. The name of the company that was trimming the trees across from the house is named Bubba, I think it's Bubba's Tree Service. Yeah, and anyway, right after that neighbor complained, I was told by the people that were doing the cutting that they had changed their stance from 8 foot to a 3-foot clearance around the power lines. And I didn't know whether or not that had anything to do with the amount of power that was being carried through the lines and at different places, but one of the things that I'd kind of like to know tonight is what is the distance? You know, what is the true distance as far as away from the line that you need? And then, you know, are we applying that uniformly throughout the city? And, you know, so can you tell me what the distance is away from I guess the highest power line that you have up there?
On the distribution voltage, what you would be referring to as what goes down into the city streets, not the high voltage, high tension wires that you see that comes across Highway 90 down here between our substations. 15 feet is what we consider ideal, each side of the conductor. That is very seldom in the city of Destin achievable with making good decisions on proper cuts and clearances and customer concerns. That does change during different periods of the year sometimes, as far as the area that we're trimming in, the type of species of trees, the structure of the tree. But 15 foot's ideal for that type of primary voltage, which is 7,000, roughly 7,200 volts. There are the smaller voltage, what you may have been referring to as around 3 feet, is our secondary voltage, which has a different type of wire and obviously a lot lower voltage, less than 600 volts. That would be closer to what you would see a maintenance, depending on the structure and type of tree, of around 3 feet.
Okay. When you went into this plan with putting the 3-phase power in that was going to be required for that pump station, did you get a permit to take those trees out, or did you just tell the city staff those trees got to come out, or how'd that work?
That was done through the engineer.
Yeah, our
And the
engineer
city's-
would have been working with city staff, and we did not pull a permit specifically to remove trees, but we, if I'm not mistaken, we do have a permit for the work that's being done in the right-of-way.
Did
We
those,
typically pull those.
I saw trees that were taken out, though, that looked like they were going way away from any power lines whatsoever with this project. You know, is that something that's customary?
The 2 trees in particular that you're referring to were the 2 trees that were removed near, I'm not sure the exact address. 607 were a sweet gum and a maple. And by the amount of trimming that would have been done to those trees for the clearance that we required would have negatively affected the health of those trees, and I made the decision in accordance with notifying the engineer that those trees would need to be removed.
Let's talk about the distance, relocating that pole line from where it's at now.
Yeah,
Yeah, when we design the project, we look at the project in a lot of different ways. And one of the options we have for this particular project is to set the poles in line with the existing pole line and spread all the conductors out to give us room to pull in our new conductors. Or we can set our new poles outside the line, outside the existing line, moving it closer to the roadway, which was discussed with the city staff, if I'm not mistaken. And that saves us time and money from having to spread those conductors out to make room to build the new power line. Either way, whether we spread those conductors or build the new pole line next to the existing pole line, we have to trim the trees back to be able to clear out that space to achieve 2 things. One is the safety of our employees doing the work, as well as the general public, and the other is to obviously attempt to maintain reliable service to the customers that line serves.
I just know that anytime, I can't name the company that the orange truck people, but basically what happens is I start getting phone calls whenever they show up on people's streets because they know what's fixing to happen. And I will say that after it's done, it does look, terrible. And I just hope that we're not taking out any more than we absolutely have to. And one of the things I would say is that if you can do it less and come back more often, I would rather you do that than to just basically take out trees and knowing full well that even if they did up one side of it, that would probably grow back. But when we take them out, there's no chance of that whatsoever. And so, my thing is that every tree that, well, most all the trees in Destin I feel are precious, and I hate to see just go in and start cutting down 40-foot trees for power when we could have done something else. That's my whole gig.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm sure some of the other council members have some questions, and I'll relinquish for a little bit.
Councilmember Barner.
Thank you. Why could we not have gone underground?
The option to go underground is always there. It's just a question of who wants to pay for the undergrounding of the facility.
Okay. Second question, the house on the corner of First and Fourth pretty much was surrounded with shrubbery and stuff, and everything you cut out there was all in the right-of-way? That's the one that stands on pylons, sits on the poles at the corner of First and...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To my knowledge, the stuff we cleared there was a very overgrown area. Vines were overtaking our facilities and the shrubs there. And I spoke with the customer personally and during our notification process prior to.
Okay, and the last question is, why did you leave that poor lone little tree that's leaning over so far? I mean, it looks sad right there. I mean, between the two properties.
That's part of my process of going through and doing no more than what I estimate is necessary till we see the spots take place for where the poles are going to be set. Just like the larger live oak tree up the street that we were left, that we topped and rolled because the structure of that tree allows for pruning and the line going over the top of it. I could have easily went down through there and removed half a dozen more trees that would have been in the right of way.
Well, aesthetically, it just looks like...
And it's always an option for it to take it down, but in my opinion, it was savable. So that's attractive to some people not. Like I say, we can always cut it down. The trees that we removed is just what we deemed necessary for the safety of the power line and the construction.
Okay, that's all I have now.
Councilmember Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if you were the same crew or if this may have been a completely separate sort of phasing, but I know last spring there was a crew that went down 98 to trim the trees that were along and near the power lines on 98. And I remember driving down there and they looked butchered, for lack of a better word. And I know I got complaints about that as well. Are y'all familiar with that project or what?
Yes, I am.
Is that typical? Is there any way to alleviate some of that? Because we had massive branches that all of a sudden you had a foot wide stump or where it was cut and multiple places. Could you just shed some light on that? And maybe that's something we can address in this same, whatever we work out or discuss tonight. Maybe that's something that can be included in that.
That's part of a storm hardening project that we do every year for the reliability from the substation out to our first protection device that we do with the Public Service Commission's request for us to, that program that we have with them. And that's to ensure reliability and keep that feeder hot during storm situations. That's why you've seen some of the bigger cuts, some of the larger limbs being removed, stuff that had been allowed to be there. Part of it was in conjunction with the DOT project, with the DOT clearance over the roadways, the really big limbs that you saw cut down around the donut hole and a couple other places where you saw the 24-inch diameter cuts. That was in relation to a DOT project. That was at their request. We worked in conjunction for the traffic control and the lane closure time. We timed our work together. And then parts of that is just some of the cuts that you see is just in relation to the right-of-way. Sometimes once you get to the property line, we're at ends of dealing with the customer. If the customer don't want us to trim and make proper cuts, and sometimes we need an extra to make a cut further, to make a proper cut on the tree, but we're not. We're kind of at the customer's mercy with that. So if they don't want us on their property, we have to make that cut at the right-of-way as best we can.
Thanks for explaining that. I think Councilmember Marlar brought up a really good point, and perhaps this is better directed towards city manager or staff, but I know our goal is to one day have everything undergrounded, and it'd be great if we could anticipate any time we're going to have some sort of electricity done, power, anything, to at least maybe look into getting some sort of estimate on what it would cost to go ahead, and even if it's just a segment, I don't even know if that's possible, but it might lead us one step closer to starting to underground, particularly if we're already messing with those lines. So, thanks. Thank y'all.
Councilmember Morgan?
In cities that operate, y'all operate in that have really strong tree ordinances, do y'all supersede those? Like, let's say to cut down a certain caliber oak tree, you cut it down and a city would impose a fine on a normal citizen, developer, landowner. Do y'all operate under those
No.
protocols? Y'all
We're
supersede-
exempt from those requirements because of the restrictions that would put on our work.
Now, we do our best
Sure.
to work within those restrictions where they do allow us to, as being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
But there are certain parts of our work that we can't abide by those provisions, and we're regulated by the Florida Public Service Commission as well as the National Electric Safety Code. We have to work within those allowances.
Sure, because the work y'all did on 98, you know, that was one of the prettier parts on 98 where the oak trees were overhanging, and I understand it's necessary and all of that, but, you know, there's some cities like Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, that if y'all cut oak trees like that, I mean, somebody would be shot, you know?
Right.
and they really
That was,
take
that
care of
portion
their trees.
was done in conjunction, that was involving the DOT and the clear zone that they have
Yeah.
over the traffic area. You know, some of it was, they needed our help to make the tree safe so that they could do the trimming, and some of it was done by our crews working around the power line. So we done all that work in one time so not as to impact the traffic. So what appeared to be a lot of Gulf Power driven removals or trimming was not solely Gulf Power.
Thanks for coming out.
That, if I
Councilmember
could-
Dixon?
I need to.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It made me think of something when Councilmember Morgan was talking about a lot of streets have canopies, and he's right. How are some cities allowed to have the canopies fully across streets, even when they're low, and you wonder how an 18-wheeler even fits under them? But how are some allowed to have those and others not, if that's what I'm hearing?
Most likely, there's not power lines involved in those areas, and then if they do, they probably restrict traffic to a certain size. You're not going to see a DOT or a state highway with low-hanging branches. I believe the minimum requirement without being posted for clear zone is 14.5 feet over the roadway. So, and that may vary state to state and then by road, so.
And we do have some areas within our own service area that do have overhead utilities, that do have the canopies over the roadway, but the power lines are placed in such an area that they're not affected by that growth that's over that roadway. They're not affected by that
12th
canopy.
Avenue comes to mind in Pensacola. If you've been there, they have a nice live oak canopy that overhangs the road, but the power lines are well behind those trees. And the backs of them do get trimmed, but it's not as visible over the roadway.
Thanks, sorry to interrupt.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes, and I don't know if this has anything to do with you gentlemen, but in my opinion, the intersection of 4th Street and 1st Street, we're not finished with that yet, I hope, because it looks rough. And so I hope that we're going to get that graded out and make it look a little bit better. We got, it's high places, low places, areas that I hope all the stumps have been ground now, but areas that intersection needs to be cleaned up, and I don't know who is going to do that. Maybe somebody can speak to that from the city or whatever, but we do need to clean that up still.
There was some work started on that prior to the holiday. I haven't been there to inspect that work, but all the work's not done yet because there are some more stump grinding to be done and some trees, depending on the pole sets, that may need to be removed at the corner of 4th and
1st. 4th and 1st.
at 4th and Beach.
Beach.
Fourth and Beach, the pole set has not been decided where that's going to be, and there may be a tree there that has to be removed too, but we're waiting on that to see.
Great. Okay.
Councilmember
All
Morgan.
right, I just want to make sure, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that somebody from the city speaks on this and knows that that intersection still needs attention.
Yeah.
So I don't know who to talk to here about that, but we need to make sure that that is somehow graded off and maybe some grass planted or something there, because it does look terrible, so.
I was just going to say, yes, sir, we'll make sure that staff is on that, working with Gulf Power, and that the entire area is put back to aesthetically pleasing area when the work is done.
Thank you.
I just want to speak to that one point. You were talking about the 3-foot area there. There's a line that runs from the transformer pole. I'm sorry, thank you. There's a line that runs from the transformer pole, which is called the service line, that runs from the transformer pole to the house. That's the, what we call a service lateral. And that's where you can get away with a 3-foot area there, because that's insulated wire there. Just a little clarification on that.
Actually, I know what you're saying, but I do know that they did change, because I saw it. They did change the rule from whatever, and I don't know about the power voltage, but it was the main lines that were running down Fifth Street. They changed from an 8-foot cut to a 3-foot cut on those lines. Don't know why or whatever, but I do know that that happened. So, you might want to check into that. And, my house is at the intersection of 3rd Avenue and 5th Street, but I'll tell you that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what the people from the Bubba's Tree Service told me too. So,
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And we're going to, we haven't staked that pole job yet, have we?
No, we're going to work on that coming up soon.
Okay, that job will be staked as far as the new location for the new poles. So where the poles are now, the new pole line is going to be, I think, at least 10 feet closer to the road. So maybe 5 to 10 feet, somewhere in that area there. But when those stakes get in the ground, we'll in turn get back with city staff and ensure that they're okay with, those locations and all, make sure there's no tree issues. So when those stakes go on the ground, that'll be a verification to say, okay, let's look at the tree line and see what's going on in that route. But it being close to the road is going to be advantageous as well, to be mindful of trees.
Thank you so much. A little warning would be nice too. If you're going to have to do something like that, let us know. We're the ones that's going to get the phone calls, so if the staff you notify the staff and staff notify us, then at least we know what's going on, so.
We try to make sure we communicate that, so.
Yeah, our process, whenever we do a maintenance trimming or something like this, we either talk to every customer or they get a door hanger, just like I did. I personally notified because of the situation and the trimming of some of the larger trees. I personally notified or talked to every customer on that street adjacent to that power line. So that is part of our process to try to keep some of those customers, if they are upset or have questions or concerned about our trucks being out there, what we're doing, just general knowledge of what's going on. We try to notify a minimum of 3 days in advance before anyone shows up to do work there for vegetation. So, because we don't want you to get inundated by calls about what's going on and then be unaware of what's going on there.
Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Councilmember Morgan, do you have another question? No. Go ahead.
may I ask a question, sir? I appreciate the fact that you individually check with all of the homeowners all along the area. Could I make a request? Would you be able to let our chief engineer know as well when you're notifying all of the others? And that way, I can notify the council and let them know that work is going to be done in this area, just in case, not necessarily a homeowner, but a neighbor to one of the homeowners has a question.
That's not a problem. We can notify the city in any form they like prior to the work when we're working on. Sometimes there's ticket works where or storm work that won't be notifiable, but for regular maintenance work or new DSOs such as this, that won't be an issue.
That'd be so helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all for coming. Unless you have another comment? That's it? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes for May 9th, 2016, unless there's changes or comments.
So moved.
Have a motion, second?
Second.
A motion, second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote aye. Minutes are unanimously confirmed. We have a second reading of ordinance number 16-13-LC. Mr. Miller, would you read by title?
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 16-13-LC by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to religious organizations as a permitted use within the commercial trades and services zoning district, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for the amendment of Land Development Code Section 7.12.06 zoning districts, Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses, to provide for the religious organizations as an allowable use within the commercial trades and services zoning district, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on second reading.
Thank you. Ms. Lejeune, comment?
Mr. Shirley, have there been any changes made to the ordinance since first reading?
No, there have not. It's identical to that approved on first reading.
So everything is the same as we discussed last time, sir? We're just asking for a permitted use in the CTS zoning area.
Thank you. Do I get a motion and a second on this already?
Just to remind Mayor Fisher, this is a public meeting.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Thank you.
We'll open the meeting to public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to address this ordinance? If not, did we have a motion on this yet? We need a motion, please.
I move that the city council adopt proposed ordinance 1613LC on second reading and direct staff to move to forward to the Municipal Code Corporation for incorporation into the City of Destin Land Development Code.
Second. Mr. Morgan makes a motion, Mr. Destin seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote by voting aye. Or yes, excuse me. Sorry. Mr. Morgan? We have a unanimous yes vote. We have a public opportunity to speak on council propositions. Do we have any blue cards for these? And I think I will hold 7 and 18 until we reach that. At this point, we'll allow anyone to discuss items 4, 5, 6, 14A. Mr. Chesser, are you here for 17 or 18, or did you have one earlier than that? Okay, I'm going to hold 17 and 18. I think that's what most folks are going to want to discuss, and I have all of these for that. I have no request cards for any other items. Is that correct? Other than 17 and 18? Ask the council for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Discussion?
I have one question.
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to find out if we vote on this tonight, when they'll start on the Joe's Bayou. if the vote goes the way that we should, like tomorrow.
Mr. Bodie, could you come to the microphone, please?
Yes, they actually will be starting tomorrow. They're going to be moving their equipment and setting up the DMMA, which is the spoil pit, and they should be getting going with erosion control at that point, and then they'll start dredging. So it should be, if they start dredging by the end of, say, tomorrow or even Thursday, they'll be able to get done within 4 days.
Okay, so, but we'll still have a couple of ramps open for people to use.
Yes.
Okay, because I know it's ramp 1 that's one of the worst, so.
I think the majority of the work will be at ramp 1.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Not, I call for the vote. Oop, excuse me, question.
Ramp 1, is that if you're facing the water to the left, far left, is that ramp 1 or the other way?
To the west side, yes, sir.
Okay. Are we taking up any boat launching areas that could be utilized that they won't be able to utilize?
No, sir. My understanding is ramp 1 is pretty badly silted in, or shoaled in. Right now, I believe they are launching jet skis out of it. That's how badly silted in it is at the moment.
But we're not going to take up ramp 2, 3, and 4 with the dredging equipment or any, so we're going to basically stay in that one ramp, so we don't, what I'm wondering is, you know, I'm going to get calls, why are we dredging in July and taking up all the launch space and stuff like that. So, you know, what I'd kind of like to know is that we're going to be basically setting up our equipment and dredging in an area that wasn't being able to utilize anyway. Am I correct? Or other than jet skis, maybe.
Pretty much. Will we actually get in the way from time to time? Quite possibly, but we're going to minimize any inconveniences as much as possible.
Okay. I realize what we're doing. We're trying to piggyback on the dredge work that's being done there in the harbor, but I feel like we will be criticized for the time of year we're doing. I've already heard it on the harbor dredging stuff, so I'm sure we're going to be criticized some on the fact that we're doing it in July, the busiest time of the year for our boat launch. But we got to do it. We got to do it. So anyway, I just hope we would consider that in the future, that we got plenty of months other than the busiest months that we can to do that kind of stuff. So
agreed.
Thank you.
I hit the vote call button a little quick, so I can't tell if you're asking to speak. So anyone else have a comment or question? If not, you can go ahead and vote. We have a unanimous yes. That was for the consent agenda. Okay, we have project reports and comments from mayor and council, and we'll begin this week with Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for doing this. I won't make a habit of it, but I would like to, I don't know the exact procedure, but I'd like to set aside the order of the day and discuss tree ordinance, which I believe I have a speaker who's ready to address us on it. I think if we vote...
If that needs a second, I'll approve.
Yeah.
We have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Attorney, am I doing this correctly? We need to vote
Yes, sir.
on
Could we
this.
clarify whether or not you intend to have a motion tonight?
I think so, yes.
Okay, just so it's clear that your vote would also authorize a motion, and that would require only a majority vote for passage if your order to set aside, or motion to set aside the order of the day is approved.
Sure.
Is that clear to everyone?
And that's okay with the second as well?
Wait a minute, I don't quite understand that. If we're setting it aside okay, I do get it. I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? If not, I call for the vote. I have a unanimous yes vote, and I'm holding for what? Okay.
Okay, so.
We will proceed with this. Mr. Morgan, you have the table.
Thank you very much. So during our strategic visioning session, it was one of our top priorities to get this in place, because over the past few years, we've seen lots essentially clear-cut, virtually with impunity. The Gulf Power stuff, we don't have recourse over that, I understand. But we need to do something. We need a stronger tree ordinance. It's imperative. I think we have a really good consensus on this council. And so what I've done was I've reached out and we've identified an attorney that specializes in this. And I believe, Lee, would you like to speak on this? Are you prepared to? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Lee Moore, representing Howard Group. We've made it clear that this is a significant interest of ours, preserving every tree that we possibly can in Destin. And there does seem to have been an increase in activity of removing trees and other landscaping, actually. So obviously we all understand the benefit of trees with preventing soil erosion and improving air quality, and aesthetic benefits are tremendous as well. All of that's really important. So we've reached out to several members of the council. Most recently, Councilmember Morgan. We've also been working with Alan French, the president of Trees Destin. This is a big concern of that organization's as well. If you're planting trees but you have as many going out the back door, it gets a little bit discouraging. So we would encourage some quick action on getting a good, really strong tree ordinance in place, including increased fines for illegal removal of trees, better definition about replacement of trees that do have to be removed, an improved system for getting approval to remove trees, period. And we would like to suggest an exploration of how the existing tree and environmental and tree board might play a role in that. A lot of cities do that, and they have their citizen board is involved in that process, takes a little bit of the work off of staff, and also get some buy-in from the representatives of the community in addition to you guys. So those are just some of the greater points. I did forward along, and Mr. Morgan helped us, and so did Alan French, identify some good tree ordinances out there, one from the city of Charleston, another from Alpharetta. They have similar language and requirements. What we loved about the Alpharetta ordinance is that it has a really good glossary of terms. So it helps a layperson that might be involved in some type of tree removal situation to really understand what they're reading much better. Both ordinances are very well written and easy to understand. And we did also recommend to Councilmember Morgan, Bill Brenton, it's William, let's get the official name since he's an attorney, William D. Brenton, Esquire. And he is a long-time environmental land use issue expert. He is a very accomplished attorney. I won't go through all the details of his qualifications on that front, but very accomplished. But the other thing is that he has done a great deal of work with organizations like Scenic America, which is a nationwide nonprofit that promotes scenic principles in both development and also maintaining and improving common areas, public spaces like medians and parks. And he has done a lot of work with the city of Jacksonville in making some significant improvements to their tree ordinance protections. Gotten a lot of awards for a lot of the work that he's done in this area. So, and he also has worked with Citizens for a Scenic Florida, which is closer to home here, which is an organization much like Scenic America. It's an affiliate of Scenic America, but focused here in Florida, and they have affiliates all across Florida. So This is a recommendation from us to you, just trying to help with some information gathering, but we really feel that this is an important issue and should be addressed quickly. We also wanted to make a couple of suggestions. There's been some talk of including this in the Land Development Code changes, amendments that are coming up. We feel like that will take much too long, and there could be a lot that goes wrong between now and then. So we recommend that it be treated as a standalone ordinance that would supersede any language in the existing Land Development Code that might exist now, and could be, then they could be made to be more consistent with one another through the amendments. And also recommend that you consider doing something to deter people from who might have plans now to do a lot of tree removal or any tree removal between now and when this ordinance is written, if you so decide to do this. Some type of immediate, and I'm not even sure what that could be, but some type of immediate action that would restrict that and limit it and minimize it if in case it did happen. So that's what we have. Thanks. Did I hit it all?
I think so. And so here's, follow me here, to offset the expense of hiring a professional, whoever it might be, I would ask the city to give consideration to Bill Brenton, because his resume, and I'll get Ray to send it to all of y'all tomorrow, is a really impressive resume. But my suggestion would be a tree ordinance that you have impact fees when you cut down trees of certain calibers. And those impact fees are earmarked for city purchasing trees for parks, right-of-ways, and maintaining trees that we already have that need to be trimmed or taken care of. But I would suggest that to start with this tree ordinance, 50% of those impact fees goes to offset the expense of the professional attorney, whoever, if we decide to hire someone to help develop this tree ordinance, goes to pay off his expense until that's met, then 100% of the expense will go to preservation of trees and planting of them in the city. So, and I know there'll be discussion, but with that said, I'd like to make a motion to direct city staff, mayor, to send out RFPs for a professional to help develop a stronger tree ordinance, with consideration given to the attorney, Bill Brenton. I'll get you the information tomorrow. That's my motion.
I'll second it with a question.
Sure.
In your motion, you mentioned, this company specifically, and I just don't know if we should do that. I think it would basically show preference to anybody that would be coming in and submitting a proposal if we name them and what we would want to show preference to them. So
I'll amend my motion to exclude that.
Okay, and I'll second it with that amendment.
We have a motion, we have a second discussion. We'll start with Councilmember Foreman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mention was made of our Environmental Tree Committee. It seems like the tone of this is to bypass them and go directly to writing the ordinance.
I think my intentions there is I would, because most on the tree committee are laymen in terms of experience writing the tree ordinances, I think I would prefer it be in the hands of professionals.
Well, that's fine and good, but you're making our committee system irrelevant. If we don't go back, we have to do that in land use by law. We have to go back to get them to review the process to make their comments. And I understand your urgency in wanting to do this. I'm not against that, but I'm simply saying that I kind of like to see those people that we appoint have the opportunity to weigh in on what we want to do. And that at least gives them that opportunity as a courtesy.
I have a question, staff and legal. Were you aware of this? Have you all had a chance to look at any of this or get a feel for where we're going?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The Environmental and Tree Committee at their last meeting had voted to make a tree ordinance their priority, and at their next meeting, they were going to be coming forward to discuss other options. They had been provided by staff a best practice from Tallahassee. I would love to get copies of the best practices that Ms. Moore had mentioned so that they could review those. It was the intention to try to bring forward a tree ordinance, freestanding, if you excuse the pun, not to wait for it to go into the land development codes as quickly as possible. I've also been speaking with staff about our existing permitting process for trees and cutting trees so that we can review that and see how we can tighten that up and maybe make some additional restrictive fines involved with that. That may have to wait on the ordinance to outline that, but all these things are being reviewed by staff at the moment. We would welcome anything that would help to expedite the process. Tree canopy, again, is part of the strategic visioning program, and I absolutely 100% believe that we need to not only preserve but increase our tree canopy as a city. So we are open to all suggestions and help, and I know that the Environmental Tree Committee would be happy to look at additional best practices.
Councilmember Moore.
My questions are kind of this way. Okay, so when we talk about having a strong tree ordinance, so let's say the person has a tree that he or she wants to remove for, not necessarily for looks or anything, but for like insurance purposes. The insurance company has told them, because I've run into this before on a situation where the insurance company has told them this tree is too close to the house, it's going to pose a danger. Your premium is going to be this high if you continue to leave the tree there, but if you have the tree removed, that's one thing. I hope that's incorporated in there, so we do that. And the second thing is, I have no problem with this, except that I am not a fan of palm trees, especially in this area, because I still feel they're not native to this part of Florida so much. I mean, that's my only other comment. I understand they look nice, but I'm just not fond of palm trees.
I certainly would prefer to see native vegetation and native trees. I'm with you there. But with the insurance, obviously, we wouldn't want to penalize anyone who had to cut a tree down. But again, this is why we would seek the help of professionals to draw this up, because we are laymen.
Councilmember Dixon.
Yes, and I certainly wasn't looking to avoid the Environmental and Tree Committee, but I think they could work with us just like, anybody else and trying to help come up with the plan. And so, I certainly want them involved in this, not trying to go around them.
My point is, I don't think they're going to draw the actual ordinance. I would prefer to see their input, like Mr. Foreman said, and certainly take some recommendations from them. But at the end of the day, we acknowledge as a council that this is a top priority, and city governments move slow. I would like to expedite that.
Councilmember Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I think this is a great idea. From what I'm gathering is you're looking at the attorney as being the special expert that would be brought in solely to assist the committee in writing and drafting an ordinance. And that would be like not on a continual basis. It would be until the ordinance is drafted and that's it, with consultation with the committee. Is that sort of the idea, or am I twisting it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think if the committee and the council may disagree on some issues, I think the council would take precedent over the committee, but yes, I think they would be directly involved with the tree committee.
Great, okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Foreman.
Yeah, let me just go back on my comments. I wasn't trying to downplay your motion or anything like that, but the reason I raised the Environmental Tree Committee, they're very dynamic at enforcing these things at different stages, meaning they're out there once you've got the thing in place, and they take possession of this ordinance. And then they start doing a lot of the legwork that is otherwise missed, as you can tell by other things that we do, that we don't have everybody everywhere. So I kind of like to keep them in touch. However you do it, probably is working with the attorney, working with us, doing those kinds of things.
There's no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. Again, unanimous yes.
That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Destin.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Morgan.
Marler, we got to work on your pronunciation there.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll just don't call me late for dinner. That's all I ask. Just a couple of things. Quick kudos for last night's fireworks. It was nice. I enjoyed it very much. And secondly, Lance, kudos to you. We had a situation at the last meeting where I asked about kayaks being permitted at the boat ramp, and Lance came through and took care of the individual that had contacted me, and looks like we're working toward getting a permanent solution to that, because if we approve Miss Lejeune's contract tonight, she's an avid kayaker, so she'll be out there using it too. So other than that, that's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Foreman.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. The last TDC meeting that I attended, the subject came up of funding, some funding from the TDC to support the dredging. And at that point in time, it wasn't on their agenda either, so we didn't get that far. But the point of the matter is that in the brief discussion that we had, it appeared that some funding would fit on an emergency basis if we ask them, which brings up my point here tonight. We need to, in some form, either ask them to provide some limited funding for emergency dredging, and that would be in the way of maybe a letter or a note from the city manager or from the mayor, whichever, and so that to the next meeting, when it is on the agenda, we'll have some support there. So that's what I'm bringing up. I think it's not as a motion necessarily, but as a consensus, if that would be acceptable. I don't see how we can turn it down.
With no objections, we'll form a letter.
Okay, thank you. Second thing is that we all have survived the 4th of July in US 98 at this point in time. I happened to go to the beach in the bar, and I thought we were bad, but they are exceptionally bad over there. And so the fact that we went through that, I also wanted to say that I see on the agenda at the end of the evening, we've got some comments on our park. And this is all part of the same problem. We're not going to solve parking if we don't solve parking at Heritage Park. I think it's our property. If we can't solve our own problem, then we're not likely to solve everybody else's either. So I look forward to that discussion later on.
Councilmember Dixon.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Ramsell.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to actually ask City Manager what the status was of the dredge. That's the emergency dredging.
I believe they're done, aren't they? Yes, ma'am, and that's why we'll be moving the equipment, hopefully by tomorrow, over to Joe's Bayou.
Gotcha, so it's just sitting idly somewhere?
Yeah. I would like Mr. Bodie to come back up to the microphone, please.
When it comes up, I believe the dredge was moved directly from the emergency dredge over to Joe, so we can save some money and get them both done at the same time.
The dredge is actually over at Joe's Bayou right now. They left, I I believe prior to the first, prior to the first, they had left the channel and staged up at Joe's Bayou. The only thing that's still there on Noriego Point right now is the bulldozer and the extended arm track hoe. Both of those pieces of equipment should be moved. If not moved this afternoon, they're going to be moved tomorrow to Joe's Bayou to where they can, again, put in the erosion control devices and then create the spoil pit and get ready for dredging Joe's Bayou.
That's great. I knew I hadn't seen it there, and I didn't know if it had gone away, and we would have to wait for it to be brought back. So excellent. I'm glad it's already over here. That's all I had on that topic. Councilman Foreman, I'm glad you brought up the TDC thing, because I know that the first cent, I had actually mentioned this to city manager earlier this week, but there is within that first penny, they have set aside funds for dredging specifically. So I completely concur with your proposal and think we definitely should take advantage of that. City manager, I wanted to ask you as well. I know I'd gotten an email earlier this week and you were going to look into it about tent frames being left out on the beach overnight. Do you have any update on that?
Yes, the tent frames that were first identified were picked up the very next morning by our Recreation and Park staff. I would ask that Mr. Johnson would come forward and ask if there's any additional information regarding that issue.
Good evening. Yeah, our staff is, until further notice is given, going to be doing this every morning. They're going to be looking at specifically at our beach parks for abandoned property that's unattended and abandoned, and they will be collecting it, and it will be coming back to our public services yard. As a courtesy, we will keep it for 1 week. If people want to try to come back and reclaim it, we're not going to police the reclaiming process, but we will keep it for a week. If it's not claimed in a week, it's going to be disposed of.
I have a question. Is that a city responsibility, or is that sheriff's? Or, I mean, are y'all taking on extra duties that normally you aren't supposed to be providing?
We're doing it in very limited spots, only at the beach parks. The county does do some on the private property. So we're specifically focused on our beach parks, the city-owned beach parks.
Thank you. And that's actually all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one motion to make tonight, Mayor. I move that the city attorney, Mr. Jerome Miller, be immediately relieved of his duties with the city, and for the council to direct the city manager to issue a request for proposal to fill that position.
I will second that with discussion.
We have a motion and a second to relieve the city attorney, effective 30. Point of order?
Yes, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it would require a supermajority in that case?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to figure out which button to push. Discussion? I call. No, this has to be a supermajority. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between on this thing. I think Mr. Miller is a good attorney, and I think he's a good person. But I do feel like that well, in the past here, that the way he spoke to some of the citizens, I wasn't quite fond of, and I've told him so during the meetings. I think he's a good attorney. I think we are right now to a point where we've got a new city manager coming in, and it may be time to look around and see what else is out there. I do have respect for Mr. Miller, but I'm going to have to vote in favor of this tonight.
Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. The city made a mistake once back in 1994, and they let Mr. Miller go, and then 4 years later, they brought him back. I'm going to defend Mr. Miller on the process of this. He has been in our seat. He was a city councilman in the city of Fort Walton Beach once upon a time. He knows this city in and out. I don't think if we bring in another attorney, they're going to have the expertise to know everything that we've done in the years that he's been our attorney. So I will not vote yes on this.
Further discussion? Councilmember Ramswell.
I won't speak badly about Mr. Miller because I really looked up to him when I first joined this council. Unfortunately, there have been a few situations that I believe were not handled well or properly, and honestly, I have a complete lack of trust, and that's a problem. We need to be able to trust our city attorney and turn to them for advice and guidance, and I have not been able to do that in probably almost a year now. So I would be in favor of this as well.
All right, further discussion? Mr. Foreman?
I think one of the things that the new council members had going for them when they came on board here was their enthusiasm to get things done. And the first thing they did was let the city manager go after we had been missing the community service director. Now you're talking about letting a very experienced and well-recognized attorney go, and you're shooting yourselves in the foot in the process. I mean, there's time left to do some of these things without having to clean house. I mean, I just don't see the advantage of doing this. There's been some animosity, but I go back and look at it, it was invited in many cases. And every once in a while, you have to have somebody stand up and tell someone, that their actions are inappropriate. And he's done that. And I'm sorry that it hurts your feelings, but, you're going to get a new attorney in here. It will take a very long period of time to get his feet on the ground. Mr. Miller has a business in town. So if that's the direction you're going in, then I think you're probably going to be doing yourselves more harm than good.
Further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. And this will be a 2/3 required to pass.
Can you restate the vote? Is it a yes to release him or?
Yes to release him. That would be correct. Five yes, 2 no. Somebody tell me if that's 2/3 or not. It is. It is 2/3.
Mayor, if I may speak?
Yes, sir.
Under the contract, there's a 30-day notice period on your action to terminate. I'm not sure what was intended by the motion.
I'm sorry, I was assuming that we would honor the contract, we'd have a
If it's-
2/3, and that was the intent of your motion, was that the intent of the second? That was what I had assumed during the vote.
Absolutely.
Okay. That was the intent and the second, and I assumed that everyone understood that when they voted. Mr. Miller, anything else?
Thank you very much for the privilege and honor to serve the city of Destin. I don't have any new items tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your long service. Oh, I think maybe we ought to, and maybe Mrs. Lejeune could help us along. Um, If we do not have a city attorney on board within 30 days, what's the process for an interim, or can our land use attorney fill in both slots for us? If that's acceptable with the
If I
council.
understand the motion correctly, sir, I have been tasked to put out an RFP, and that will take time. And if, you need the particulars, I'm sure that Mr. Farmer can speak to that, but I do believe that it would take anywhere from 60 to 90 days for an RFP. So 45 to 60, thank you. In the meantime, if Mr. Shirley is willing to double, then at least the city would not be without a city attorney during that time frame.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to do that. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that I will be out for the first meeting in August on vacation. That is within 30 days, so I'm assuming that will be Mr. Miller's last meeting.
Comments, discussion by council? Anyone oppose this
Do-
suggestion?
Do we need to make a motion to ask Mr. Shirley to step in that period between Mr. Miller's departure and the approval of a new attorney?
I believe that there should be a motion to officially say that Mr. Shirley would be our city attorney during that time frame.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved that Mr. Shirley fill in temporarily as the city attorney in addition to land use attorney. Second?
Second it, Mayor.
We have a motion, we have a second, discussion. Mr. Braden, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I was just going to thank Mr. Shirley for stepping in and taking on the role of that position. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, no further discussion, call for the vote. Yes is affirmative. We have unanimous yes. Mr. Braden, anything further?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
I believe each of you have already received a proposed employment contract for Ms. Lejeune that Karen and I prepared. Obviously, she's well aware of this. It's all public record. We did this in the sunshine, as well as the past. She also was given a copy of the past two city managers' contracts. The contract before you is pretty much a standard, as I understand it. This is my first time, so I'm not an expert at it, but as I understand it, this is a very similar contract to what your last two city managers were presented with, and also which is done throughout the state of Florida. The salary structure, we asked the mayor's League of Mayors to present us with salaries from all the cities in Florida and compared them to the cities in this region, as well as cities of similar size and of cities that did not offer utilities, that didn't manage police departments, fire departments, et cetera. Cities similar to Destin, and found that the proposed salary was within that range. It's also what our previous city manager was earning in the starting salary of the city manager prior to that. I do not think you're going to find anything in this document that is outside of the normal and what the city of Destin has done in the past. I present it to you for discussion, changes, and for a motion that to present it to Ms. Lejeune as an offer, if you so desire. Discussion?
I'll make the motion if you want to
Okay.
do one before, and then I
Yeah.
also have a question/comment.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
We have a motion. We have a second. Councilmember Ramsell, will you start the discussion?
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm, because I know looking at the numbers, and it was explained to me, on the surface, it looks like Ms. Lejeune would actually be having a larger package than former city manager Casella. But my understanding is that her benefits package is almost 37% less, which actually is about $22,000 less per year than Mr. Casella's package. Am I interpreting that correct?
That is correct. Mr. Casella had a much larger percentage going into his retirement plan, and which increased the size of his total package than the manager preceding him. She did not, and so her starting was higher than his to try to compensate for the larger amount going into the retirement plan. But I think if you total up total dollars, the starting pay for all three city managers are probably within 5% of each other or even closer.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, discussions? Let's see, I had a motion. Did we get a second on that? We got a motion, we have a second. If y'all would like, a yes will be in the affirmative to propose the document that I drew up as to Ms. Lejeune as an employment contract. Yes. Do it again. We have unanimous. Ms. Lejeune, is this, we have an offer on the table. You can consider it or accept.
I very happily accept. Thank you so much.
You may now remove the interim from the first part of that memo from now on.
And you don't have to be near as nice to these folks as you were before. Tell them how it is. If you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll resume about 7:20. Gentlemen, will you please return to your seats? Mr. Miller, do you have any comments?
No, Mayor, nothing further.
Mr. Shirley?
No comments, thank you.
Started to say Mrs. with June, but I think I'll just say City Manager. Comments?
Yes, sir. I was asked by a member of the council to bring forward an item regarding securing the park property at Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park. Understanding that this discussion has come before the board previously 2 times, in the backup, I've provided the agenda
Mrs.
item.
You skipped an item, ma'am.
I did skip 17. I was going to go back to it unless the council would prefer to continue in order.
There's a sound of panic.
We'll just continue. Go ahead.
Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. So what I did is that I provided the backup agenda items from both of the previous meetings where this issue was discussed, and also the Harbor CRA had just recently discussed this particular topic as well, and I've included their minutes from their last meeting with their recommendations. So I will just allow the board at this time to do what you would like to with this item.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes, I don't know really how or why this is on the agenda tonight, because this was one of the recommendations that was made by the Harbor CRA Advisory Committee. And it's my understanding that we were going to, on the 27th of this month, have a CRA meeting and discuss this. Am I right? Why can't this, I mean, that's not a workshop, it's a regular meeting. So, I mean, why wouldn't we be addressing all this stuff on the 27th?
Mr. Dixon,
my question to whoever.
Well, I heard, according to some stuff that I had heard, there were citizens that were not upset necessarily that we were trying to make a deal with Mr. Destin and BI on the property, but that the rest of the property was being misused because there were claimants that with that everybody had enough parking, and then they're saying they're not. I saw where Mr. Braden had asked for a parking violation thing, and according to that, BI is in violation, and that was somebody, apparently since it is public record, some other people found out about it, and they I've been asked, and I don't know if several other council members have been asked, is why we are continuing to allow that one section. My personal opinion is that in good faith, for me, would be that we leave the driveway open and block off the rest, if that would make the citizens happy, until we come to a conclusion on on the land deal itself. I mean, I'm getting flack from several people who are saying that they're not happy with the situation. They're not unhappy with the fact that we're trying to work out something with Mr. Destin, but they're unhappy with the fact that we're still allowing cars to park there, whether they're for his restaurant or the other restaurants or something across the street. And that's where I'm getting it from. And I think that's where Ms. Lejeune got some of what she's bringing before you. We have some citizens who are upset that we paid that amount of money for a piece of property and we're still in limbo. And so they're trying to say, we're not against the deal, but we just think the rest of it should be blocked off. That's all I'm on about. That's what I've been told.
I'm not too sure who brought this to Ms. Lejeune, if they want to identify themselves, but it might be best at this point we had a motion, so we had some idea where we were going with this before we started discussion. Pleasure of the council. Please.
Okay. My motion is to establish a no parking area and a tow-away zone in the area that's designated for Heritage Park until such time as a final arrangement is made for the use of the property. That's my motion, and my discussion point is that we sit here week after week talking about how we're going to regulate parking, how you can't park on street or you're going to be cited and all like that, but we've got an area that belongs to the city for which we don't regulate at all, in which, until such time as a final decision is made on it, is not only an unfair use of that property, but it's a joke. That's what it boils down to. We all know the reason for it. And to say that we don't know who those people are, fine. If we don't know who those people are, we should have no problem in putting up signs saying it's a no parking tow-away zone. Anyway, that's my motion.
Councilmember Ramswell.
Did you want to wait and see if there was a second?
Yes, please.
I'll second it for more discussion.
We have a motion, we have a second to establish a no parking tow-away zone. I assume and fence the park area so it's controlled. And that would be we have a motion and a second to that effect. Did I misstate that in any manner? Okay. We will. Do you have a question or do you want to comment? I really need to go to the public first before we go into our full discussion.
Go to the public first.
Okay. Mr. Chesser, would you like to lead us off?
Thank you. I am Mike Chesser. I live in Niceville. I work in Shalimar. I am the attorney for the Destin fleet, and I was here 60 days ago suggesting to you all that there is a problem. I will tell you again this evening that what I said then was it would seem that the city ought to do something. I have since confirmed that in fact there is a grant that's available to the city for you to improve that property as a park. You all know that. I understand that the attention of the state of Florida has been focused on the fact that there is something that's being worked out and the hope that maybe there are some kinds of compromises being made. I suspect that the answer is that there aren't probably no compromises that can be made. Much as the example I discussed with you on that evening, I said, we have discovered that somebody in my class, in my graduating class, is reading on somebody else's final exam. There is no compromise to that. What you're doing is making a serious blunder, and what you do about it depends on who you are. Here, I understand the city is paying insurance on a piece of property that's being used as a parking lot. My client gave up the right to buy that property for you. They stepped back and said, city, you buy the property if you're going to build a park. If you do that, we have some requirements that we have for you. We didn't want to walk away from 15 parking spaces that we owned on this piece of property. We, the Destin Fishing Fleet, did that because you needed that property. When they did that, they said, if we do that, we want you to build this park and we want you to do it with some alacrity. Don't wait, please do it. And when you do it, put bathrooms on that piece of property. Now, I hate, as I said when I was here the last time, to speak so mundane an issue as the erection of bathrooms. But I will promise you that the people who go down the boardwalk look for a place to do just that, to make use of those rooms.
They go into the bottom floor of the Destin fishing fleet. We do one of two things. We either lock the door and we say, yeah, we're a bad host, even though we are the city of Destin. You think we are an arm of the city of Destin. You can't come in here. Or we open them, and then everybody up and down the boardwalk is making use of those bathrooms. It becomes an enormous undertaking for the Destin fishing fleet. In lieu of that, we've done the only thing we thought we could do, which was lock the door, and now they go to the businesses next door saying, what do we do? What's the city of Destin doing here? We suggest to you two things. One, I know that y'all have been to the city, to the state. I know that your proposal at the state was something that I presume this board has never approved or confirmed, because I've been here and I've not seen any particular proposal that was submitted or approved to go forward to the state. I know that the state's going to be interested in their $1.2 or $3 million that they've allocated, as I understand, for the construction of this park. $2+ million for the purchase of this piece of property, which since then the city of Destin has insured to make use as a private parking lot. When we built the Destin fishing fleet property, as I suggested to you, we had a fairly consistent assessment that we made against each one of those fishermen. Each one of them put a mortgage on his house. Each one of them went to mama and daddy and other places, wherever they could go to borrow the money to get into that piece of property. And a part of what this city required of them was that they put adequate parking on that space to provide for the people who went into their facility. They did it. And as it turned out, they didn't go bankrupt, most of them. Some of them might have. But by and large, it turned out to be not a bad deal, but a pretty good deal, not just for them, but for the city. I don't mean this is not to come here and throw rocks at anybody. It is to say to this city, you got to decide who you are. You're going to sit around and let that state grant disappear. You may sit around and let the state come back and say, we want our $2.3 million back, or otherwise give us the property. I don't know which of those is going to happen. You don't have the option to do nothing, it seems to me. I personally would support the motion, put the fence up. You've heard your outside counsel now, two of them say to you, and one time a city manager say to you, it looks as if we're getting a blueprint for action that appears and always legal to me and did to those three professional folks. We think you ought to pass the motion. We think you ought to protect the grant from the state of Florida, A, that you've already gotten, from which you bought the property, B, that you yet are to receive by improving the property, and C, the commitments you made to your adjoining neighbor to go on and build and operate this as a city park. Questions? Yes, sir.
You have a question. I've never had the opportunity to have the first right of refusal on a piece of property to purchase it. But is it common practice, standard for an individual that had first right of refusal to refuse the purchase of that piece of property and then put stipulations on it to the person that is buying it?
Sure. Yeah. If we step back from the table and say, let you buy it, we can do that with whatever restrictions. We have the right to do that. We had a contractual right to put restrictions on our permitting you to buy the property. As it turned out, the Destin fishing fleet and the city of Destin made what I consider to be an arm's length real estate transaction that benefited both sides.
I got you.
And we think primarily benefited the city of Destin, but I'm okay with a discussion about that. We think it did.
So if someone gives first right of refusal to someone, that person has the right to put stipulations on that piece of property when they do sell it to whoever.
If I agree with you that I'm going to buy something and somebody comes to me and says, I want that, I may very well say, sure, you can buy that, but here's the price. And that price may be different than my price with you. I said, yeah, give me $100 and I'm out of the deal, or something. There's nothing that makes me say, I can either take it or not take it. Now, that could have been the position taken, but instead they said, we will not buy that piece of property with some conditions. And those conditions are, it matters to us how it gets used. And that's the reason for those conversations. I hope I'm answering your question.
Oh, yeah,
Man, I'm sure-
I would never give somebody a first right of refusal to buy my piece of property.
Well, but you've got a lot of real estate people in this room. I think they'd probably tell you that's, it's not a common deal, but certainly as imaginative as some of the people are in this business, that's exactly what they do.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
Mr. Foreman? Councilmember Dixon?
Yes, and I don't know, Mr. Chester, if this is a question for you, but when we talk about putting up a fence, or we're not talking about blocking off that roadway that's going down there, or the easement or whatever that's going down there. Are we talking about blocking that easement off? I mean, are we talking about blocking where the people are parking right now?
The motion is about parking.
Okay, so we're not going to fence off the whole piece of property?
No, I believe, according to my notes, that was specific in the motion. Mr. Braden?
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't think the question was ever about the parking area. And that has been the biggest gripe of the community, is that we paid, $2 million for a piece of property and we're using it as a parking lot. And we paid $2 million for it and they wanted a park. And the next question is when can we start developing that piece of property? Do we have the money? When is that going to start?
The second grant will probably control when it starts. The second grant requires us not to start until we receive it, if my memory is correct, and that probably won't be October if everything else works out.
So we can't start, say, phase one on this piece of property to?
We can continue the engineering work, but we can't do any physical work on the property.
Okay, yeah, that's been the biggest gripe that I've heard from the community, is that we bought a park and we're using it as a parking lot. But I've never heard anybody, I thought the whole argument about it, or what we've been trying to work out, is this roadway access down to the water.
Right. So. And I believe the amount of money we have in it's a little over, is 4 point something million, not the 2.
So we really can't start any type of...
4.6 million.
So we really can't start any type of building, construction, anything on that piece of property whatsoever until August?
That's my understanding. Anyone want to correct me?
Well, you can't start building the final design for the park until you get the money that funds that, but you could certainly put some kind of interim improvements, portable toilets or something, I don't know what, but you could certainly do something like that in the interim without having the grant money in place. But if you want to, where we are now is the driveway on the side, on the west side of the parcel, will require some redesign on that side of the park and a reorientation of the walkway that goes in there. Once, if this is if the state will approve the land exchange, then we can go forward and finish that design, and we'll be in a position to build the park when the money comes in.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but on the land exchange, on the land exchange, we are in a position, we have not given them a formal proposal yet because we're waiting for some indication from the state that they're going to be receptive to it before we spend the money for the appraisals and finish out the proposals. Is there anything that we should add about the current negotiations?
The rule on the land exchange rule is a two-part rule. The first part of the rule requires that the city meet certain criteria in order for the land exchange to move further, and that is a staff level review. And if the staff at the FDEP that manages the Florida Communities Trust agrees that it meets those criteria, then we go forward with the appraisals, surveys, specific design, everything we need. And then that package goes before the Florida Community Trust Board of Trustees. And that meeting would be, well, currently, that would be August 25th, I believe. So that's the date we're shooting for right now. We have still not received word back from FCT staff as to whether they, at the staff level, will support the land exchange. We're still waiting for that, and I expect to call staff probably Friday of this week if I don't hear before then.
Okay, Councilmember Ramsell?
Thank you, Mayor. You were talking about the parking lot and the parking area. You mean the entire park area that's mulched, correct?
That is, you said that is mulch?
Well, I think it's essentially the area to the east, there's the fence, the barbed fence separating the property from the Fleet's property. And it appears that there's mulch and gravel and dirt in a certain area before the easement on the west side of our property. So you mean that whole area, right?
That is the area, the lot that the city owns, yes, if that's the question. I understand that it would not be this motion would say that there will be a fence, I guess, on both sides, or maybe the fence on one side of it, and the other fence would remain where it's at. And the property would be marked no parking.
So I'm curious why you called it a private parking lot.
Well, we've been through that. You want me to repeat the same things we talked about the last time I was here? When you asked me whether I could promise you that the people parking there were going into only one business?
Well, no, it's the public, right? The city owns it, so it's public land,
Sure.
public property, it's not private.
And you could park there and go anywhere. That's not what's happening, but you could do that.
Okay, I was just clarifying,
Yes.
because earlier you called it the private parking lot, and
And in
there's
essence-
obviously the area at the bottom, there's other areas, so I just wanted to determine whether you indeed meant the actual physical park.
Right. Anything that is essentially used by a private piece of property, I guess I referred to as a private parking lot. And that is what I view this as primarily as being.
All of our parking lots are used by businesses.
Sure.
You know,
Usually by
McGuire's has
the.
80 employees a night that uses
I
the city
understand.
parking lot.
Right,
So
and normally it's by the business.
Uncommon to this one property.
Sure. Normally, it's by the business that owns that parking lot, not by, and that's really all of the issue that you all in your comp plan discussions will be talking about, I'm sure.
Sure, which I guess really underscores my point, which is the city owns the lot. That's
True.
I mean, that's obvious. It was bought for public use. Now, obviously,
for
it
a
was
park.
built to be a public park ultimately. So my argument then would be that we should maintain it as an open, public, whatever, as long as the public is able to utilize it until we do need to fence it off to break ground and do construction, because it was bought for the public. It's currently being used by the
understand.
public.
I understand the point of view. I will tell you that the grant by which you purchased it required that there be no parking on this piece of property. It is called a park, but a park without parking. And my suggestion to you is that if you delay what seems to be inevitable, at some point, somebody's going to say, wait a minute, you are violating the Florida Constitution that says we don't use public money for a private benefit. And then when you insure that piece of property, you've probably added insult to injury. But that's just I'm saying, unless somebody can show me otherwise, that's what's happening.
Because you said now originally the fleet had parking spaces on that were negotiated.
Down on the water. Yes, there were 15 parking spaces down there that Mr. Melvin had permitted the fleet to use to go with the parking, with the boat storage that he had also leased to the fleet.
So not up in the park proper, but down in the bottom, which is actually where the spaces are currently?
Which was parking proper because it was accessed through the Destin fishing fleet to park there. Yes, it was calculated as being parking until we backed off of that requirement so that you all could use it as the city park. And now, of course, you're exactly right, it's being used for parking.
Well, didn't you back off that requirement though, because it was going to be part of the public benefit that was going to be given back to the city with the development of the Tier 3 on the fleet property?
We released that so that the city could buy the property to build its city park. And I think the record's pretty clear that that's why we, the Destin fishing fleet, didn't exercise the option. We did it for you. We were thinking of you.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'll stop there.
Can I continue with the public comments before, I know there's a long line of you'd like to speak, but anyone? We only have, Mary Ann Wines is the other. Okay. Mr. Marler?
Thank you, Mayor. Part of Ms. Ramsell's question, to answer her, is the mulch or organic area, we'll call it, were a previous residence, and also on the frontage of Highway 98 was an office for the Melvin fishing fleet when Mr. Melvin was alive. And I'm hoping that that's the motion that I seconded was exactly what we were talking about, that we're not going to block off the driveway itself, just the area that people are parking on. Because I think Mr. Braden and I get caught at the same place. We frequent the Home Depot a lot, and that's where I get a lot of people jumping on my case about it. And so that was the reason I seconded the motion. We're not going to completely block it off, but the driveway is also part of the city park property. But in good faith, between the two parties, is the way I see it until we get the matter solved with the state, that we just leave that driveway open so they can ingress and egress there, but close off the rest of the property to appease the citizens that are complaining about it. And I hope that's where I was going when I seconded the motion. I don't want to stop Mr. Destin's businesses down below from being able to function. I just try to take care of what the citizens are asking.
Mr. Destin? Councilmember Dixon?
Yes, I'm asking Mr. Miller. My daughter works for the law firm, Mr. Chesser, that was just up here a minute ago. She's an attorney with the firm. And my wife also works for the Destin fishing fleet. And I wanted to see whether or not I needed to abstain from this.
I have had some information regarding her employment relationship, and that is inconsistent with your report tonight.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
And I'm not certain who her actual employer is. If I could have it confirmed some way that she's employed by the fleet and not the real estate.
Real estate professionals of Destin.
That's, I think, a substantial difference.
Well, what does that mean, difference?
Well, I don't think real estate professionals of Destin is a party in interest in this issue. But those facts are complicated enough that I couldn't give you that response here cold tonight because I don't know the particulars of those relationships.
I do know that I do, though, she does do some work for not where she gets her paycheck from. I've never seen it, but I do know that she does do work for the fishing fleet, and I just want to make sure I don't do anything wrong here.
Well, I couldn't respond to that question tonight without some in-depth review of the facts and perhaps even a recommendation to you that you apply to the Ethics Commission for a ruling.
If I may, that Emily.
Would you come up to the microphone?
There's a very good chance that Emily may be the best lawyer in my office. She is a lawyer in my office, and I know whatever happens here, your relationships there are far more important than hers as an employee, yours as, and we understand if you have to abstain for those reasons. That's not mine to say, but she is a lawyer in my office. She does get paid by our office. Your wife, of course, works for real estate professionals of Destin, somebody else. But anyway, we're not here to cause rifts that we cannot fix. We are here to do business and do it on a business basis. So we respect your duty if that's what you feel you must do.
If this real estate agency is run or employs someone that is a major stockholder in the fleet, Isn't that a consideration?
Yes,
not
sir,
a major
what?
stockholder in the fleet, I think.
I can't make that determination sitting here cold tonight, I'm sorry. There's no way for me to do that.
We've been discussing this
I
for 7
cannot
years.
render an opinion to you that I cannot formulate.
So, back to my original statement, we set up a meeting to talk about this specifically, this and a couple other items that was recommendations from the Harbor CRA Advisory Committee. And, I'm not prepared to vote on this tonight. I don't really know what to do with it, to be honest with you. I think we should just discuss it on the 27th like we talked about. So,
You got a motion on the floor.
yeah, I know it.
Asking to table the motion? Or can we take the? Okay.
If I abstain from this and I'm wrong, will I be in trouble about that?
There's technical exposure to that, yes, there is. Yes, there is.
I think I'm gonna just run to the restroom for a little bit. Can you do that?
You certainly may not do that.
Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The intent of this particular item on the agenda had to do with some of the people that weren't calling you were calling me. And particularly, there were businesses involved that were calling me. And they specifically were saying that we were giving unfair advantage to a business in the area. Well, that's not necessarily true, and I'm not trying to say that here. But what the point was is that as much as time as we spend in this city, we've got designated parking for almost everything, including city council nights. And in this particular case, we've got an area that's technically a park. It's not a designated parking area. There's no signs there saying you can park there. There's nothing in any of our ordinances that provide for it. So the point of it is that this is an interim type thing that has no permanency to it until such time as a final solution to the park is arrived at. But it does appear that we're giving a favor to a specific business. And that's what I've been told by some other businesses. And so what I'm trying to do is answer the mail on this, and that's the fact that people shouldn't be parking there if it's not a parking area. That's it.
I'm sorry, Mayor, may I say one?
Please.
Let me assure all of you that our posture here as it relates to this question raised by Mr. Dixon precedes this conversation. I've been the attorney for the Destin fishing fleet for 30-plus years. Mr. Dixon, of course, had no idea that I was going to be thrust into this position or that he was. And I heartfelt say, Mr. Dixon, that to abstain is certainly not a problem to us if in fact, because the last thing I want to do is imply that this business is more important than that which you do at home. It just isn't. And I'm okay if our client is never going to say anything about it. If you say, hey, this is too important for me, I'm abstaining, that's fine. That seems to me the reasonable thing to do. That's what I'm going. You and I never discussed it.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I was told by the previous city manager that the state had contacted the city and was going to basically ask for their $2 million plus back because we were using this piece of property as a parking lot and not a park that it was intended to. Is there any weight to that?
I don't believe so. Mr. Shirley, would you like to address that?
I had not heard that.
That's exactly what I expected. Thank you.
Mr. Foreman, I still have you up. Okay. Councilmember Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, I had a question about a document that was in the packet. It was a letter from Anchor Smith and Grimsley dated December 17th, 2007. addressed to then City Manager Greg Casella. There are portions of it that were blacked out, and I'm wondering who blacked that out and why. Let me see if I can get it on my iPad to assist y'all. In the packet, it is page 94. And the sections that were blacked out are on page 95.
I apologize, Councilmember Ramswell. I do not have any knowledge regarding why they were blacked out. When I was requesting backup information from staff, I was given that particular document because it was pertaining to this issue. I had never seen the document before, and I am at a loss as to say why those are blacked out. I don't know if there's any staff or anyone else that knows why that particular portion was blacked out.
I would have to guess that they probably used a blue highlighter on those sections, and then when it copied, it just got dark. You can see the writing a little bit through there. So if it was blacked out fully with a Sharpie, you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Could we request to see, can you find out what, I can make out some of it, but not all of it, just for future reference and for future discussions?
Absolutely. I can ask the city clerk to make the original copy available. I can put a copy of this particular document in everyone's boxes tomorrow morning so that you will then have the original document. And I think that sounds reasonable that it was a blue highlighter, so we'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of the original document that you can read. And I apologize, I should have caught that.
Finished. Councilmember Morgan.
So you'll hear, Mr. Shirley, you'll hear back from the staff. Mr. Shirley, you'll hear back from the staff on what you said. You'll call them by Friday.
That is correct.
Okay, and then we will have a final answer from the board on August 25th?
25th, I believe. Don't hold me to that. It could be a slightly different date, but that's if we can get an answer out of staff early enough for us to get the rest of the work for the package finished so that we can get it submitted to the state in time to meet the agenda package deadline for August 25th.
And that will be the end-all of this issue?
I don't know what the end-all of this issue is going to be.
No, I got a feeling either way. Let's say that the trust approves BI's agreement with the city approves it. I've got a feeling we've got one lawsuit coming. I've got a feeling if we proceed to build the park, we'd probably have another lawsuit coming. So, but we should have some more clarity on August 25th, if all goes well.
I hope so. I hope so. I don't want to overpromise.
Sure.
Councilmember Ramsell.
Thanks. I did have another question I forgot to ask. In looking at the funding, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Farmer, we got the 4.2 was awarded from the Communities Land Trust for the land. That's my understanding. And then did we not receive another $1.25 million grant from the Restore Act, from ORAC?
We haven't received that yet. We've been approved for it. The city put around $2 million. The city paid the entire $4 million. And then several years after the initial purchase, the city was reimbursed approximately $2 million from the Florida Communities Trust. And at that time that the reimbursement was made, the restrictive covenants were placed on the parcel, which restricted it to park and recreation use.
And then the additional funding that came as a result of the Restore Act and ORAC
That is an application that was made more recently, last year, I believe. It has been approved provisionally, subject to the availability of the money, and we're not quite sure when that's going to happen.
Now, would that pay just for construction and building of the park, or does that also, was that supposed to help contribute to the cost of the land?
That is solely for construction of the park infrastructure.
Mr. Miller, would it be proper to postpone discussion for a time certain and let Mr. Dixon off the hook and maybe have a few more answers before we call the vote? What would be the motion? What would be the pleasure of the
Council has that option available to them.
They have that option, right? What would be the council's pleasure?
One who made the motion, whatever he just said.
No further comment? I call the vote. Affirmative yes means that we will be closing off the property.
I'm going to have to abstain.
You'll have to say.
I know everyone knows why, but you do need to repeat it.
The reason
record.
being, I'm related to a shareholder, BI, who's the adjacent parcel owner.
Okay.
Motion fails, 2 noes, 3 yeses.
Mr. Dixon, would you state for the record your reason to abstain?
Yes, my wife works for the adjacent property owner, which the attorney was up here representing tonight, and also my daughter works for the law firm which the attorney was up here representing tonight. I don't know what else to say. Did I say that good enough?
Yes, sir.
Item 17, which I skipped. This is the current issues on the comprehensive plan. I have several speakers from the audience, but let me ask our new city manager to give us an explanation.
Yes, sir. We're bringing forward this item as a direct result from the staff meeting where we were discussing next steps to put together an action plan based on the recommendations from the workshop where the Regional Planning Council facilitated. During this discussion, staff had identified some immediate actions that they could take to perhaps relieve some of the issues that were brought up at the workshop. We still will be looking to bring someone in to help staff write the comprehensive plan amendments and land development codes, but in the meantime, this is something that we wanted to bring forward for consideration by the council. I would ask Mr. Scott Shirley if he wouldn't mind either giving us a summary of some of those options and/or answering any questions that the council might have.
Okay, very briefly, we have noted very recently, in addition to the discussion that the city council had during the recent comp plan issues workshop, that we had in-house, frankly, an alarming number of applications for large homes on interior lots, especially in the Crystal Beach area, that gave us a lot of concern about overbuilding and ending up with incompatible uses. And so in order to, in essence, get our arms around that, we are proposing certain amendments to the code that are fairly simple and straightforward and are going to, we hope, limit both the scale of those and also increase the amount of required parking spaces significantly for short-term rentals, which will, this is new short-term rentals where applications have not been filed yet. So that's only what we're going after, because we have applications that are in-house currently that that we didn't come up with this language until after they had been received. So we are, in all likelihood, equitably stopped from doing anything about those. But with applications that have not been received, what we will do is we will increase the parking requirements from what they currently are. And in particular, where 4 bedrooms or more are involved with single-family detached dwelling short-term rentals, we are proposing that is to go to 4 bedrooms, 1 space, additional space per bedroom, which will be 1 space per bedroom, period, no matter how many bedrooms there are. So if there's 8 bedrooms, there's 8 spaces that are required. Whereas the maximum number for single-family detached is 3.5 spaces per dwelling unit. So there's a very large difference there. And then multifamily attached, currently the maximum for 4 bedrooms or more are 2.5 spaces per dwelling unit, and we're just proposing to go to 1 space per bedroom for those that are specifically constructed to be short-term rentals. And we do have a method by which we can, if the owner wishes to permit the dwelling under the non-short-term rental standard, then we can get them to file a restrictive covenant which prevents the utilization of the dwelling for short-term rentals. So there's a way of dealing with that as well. We are also looking to limit the building height a little bit. Maximum building height now 35 feet. We're proposing to limit that, I believe, to 30 feet.
Yes.
Isn't that right? And then increase the open space requirement from 25 to 30%. And those are simple, straightforward, short-term, not complete fixes, but they will make a difference in the scale of those structures that are built in Crystal Beach. And just one last thing that I wanted to state. The city would be invoking the pending ordinance doctrine from Smith v. City of Clearwater, 383 Southern 2nd, 681 Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, 1980. We're declaring a zoning in progress is hereby announced as to those zoning changes that I just mentioned, and we will be holding back development review applications, including building permits and zoning letters, until such time as the ordinance is finished, either is adopted or is not adopted, and with finality, so we know that no action will be taken. And then subsequent to that final action, all applications will be required to be reviewed in conformity with the new regulations.
If I may just...
And one more.
Go ahead.
I apologize. Mr. Woolard reminded me that we're also looking at the outdoor seating. There's no minimum parking required for outdoor seating currently, and I'm sure that's where you are going. Did I steal your thunder? Do you want to cover this?
Please go ahead.
Okay, and I'm very glad of that. We are looking to come up with a requirement for outdoor seating with regard to commercial restaurants, and parking requirements for outdoor seating, that is. And this doesn't specifically state what that standard will be.
Right.
It may not be the same square foot per space that is required for indoor seating. So that's not quite as firm for purposes of the pending ordinance doctrine, and we may re-invoke the doctrine after we've firmed that requirement up a little more as to that parking requirements involving outdoor seating at restaurants.
I'd like to go to the public comment first, if I can, for make a motion, and the reason will be obvious. Mr. Guy Tadlock.
Honorable Mayor and Councilors, I'm Guy Tadlock. I live at 502 Noriego. First of all, I'd like to commend the staff and the council for moving so rapidly from taking inputs from the comp plan and putting it into something to submit to the LDC. I would like to maybe, I don't want to do anything to impede the proposed, the recommended motion in front of you tonight, other than to say that there's some really good items in there. There's two of those. Let's see if I can remember two of those, the open space and the parking limited per bedroom is really something that could be considered throughout the city of Destin, I think. But what I'd like to do tonight is at least share with you that we've got a very similar situation on Holiday Isle. In fact, we've got a couple of plans that are in queue right now that is very similar to what's going on in Crystal Beach. So what I'd like to do is maybe put a placeholder in with the city, and maybe at some opportune time that Holiday Isle could be considered to making submissions to the LDC as well. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Shelton.
Thank you, Mayor Fisher, City Council folks. Ms. Lejeune, congratulations. We're glad to have you on board and staff. I don't want to talk a whole lot about this. The guy and I decided it was not time to do that. But what I do want to tell you is we're really proud of this council giving direction that went to the staff, and the staff came back with decent recommendations. That has not happened in about 3 years, and it's really a good step forward, and I just want to commend you on that. There are some things that we'd like to see citywide here, and one of the items that Mr. Tadlock didn't specifically mention, but there was a permit approved today for a 7-bedroom house on Holiday Isle, and there's no closets in the house. Now, is that a single-family house or not? Think about that. And in this particular area where it was approved, I believe there's 7 houses. They're not waterfront properties. And if you read the ads from the rental companies or the VRBO web pages, you'll see that if they're all fully occupied, there's 180 plus people in that little group of houses, which was originally designed for probably 35 or 40 people. So thank y'all very much.
One thing that was not mentioned is that the city left open to include a larger area than just Crystal Beach in this original document they're putting together. And I was thinking for consistency and purposes and enforcement purposes, if all the beach area was treated the same, we might be better off in the long run. We don't have 2 sets of rules. Holiday Isle is the only really missing piece that would not be included in here. And if we included them, the only exception would be they've gone to quite a bit of work on height restrictions on buildings. You'd want to leave the height restrictions on Holiday Isle alone. Not that there's a big difference. It's 30 feet in the new proposal for Crystal Beach, but that's to the cornice line, and Holiday Isle is 40 feet, but that's to the peak of the roof. So it's not a big difference in it, just the way it's worded, but being as those are already in place, I would suggest you not apply the height restriction in this document to Holiday Isle, but consider during the discussion portion of this, including Holiday Isle in that. We don't have a motion. I don't know if someone would like to make a motion at this point, or shall open for discussion.
I was going to.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes, and I was going to make a motion that we go ahead and add Holiday Isle to this doctrine if we could.
What about all south of 98?
Okay, south of 98 to this doctrine. Yes.
All south to 98. Is that a motion?
Yes.
And a second?
Could you restate the motion for me, please, Mr. Dixon?
It would be basically to limit the the height restrictions and the restrictions that are in place in the doctrine that we have in front of us to apply to Holiday Isle as well as Crystal Beach. But now we're saying all of south of 98.
Let me modify that. Why don't you go with the recommended motion, but include Holiday Isle in the recommended motion?
The motion has been made, hasn't it, or has it?
No, we don't have a motion.
All right, I would move to direct staff to incorporate proposed standards into the Land Development Code amendments via ordinance and present the proposed ordinance to the local planning agency for review and recommendation and include Holiday Isle with these recommendations.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. We'll start with Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to Crystal Beach, you said you'd have a covenant and restrictions clause, basically to where if it's actually going to be a single-family unit, it will not be as strict?
If it's going to be a
Exemptions.
single-family, long-term rental,
Okay.
then, well, if it's going to be a long-term rental only, there will be a restrictive covenant that precludes short-term rentals on the dwelling.
Okay, I think my concern with that is around the city, we have lots of good codes, and we discussed this the other night about lack of enforcement. Will we have an ability to enforce that?
Enforcement, of course, is always
Sure.
a difficult issue, but it should be readily apparent if it was a recently permitted house and it is being offered for short-term rentals, we're going to be able to see on the rental management listings or on the, Verbo, vacation rent by owner or Airbnb listings.
Sure.
We routinely visit those sites to see what they're offering.
Got it. And one more thing. I think everyone here is pretty aware of how I feel about our city's parking regulations. But I would ask, and I'm not sure if I would have to make a substitute motion here or not, but before we move much farther on these parking ordinances, I think my stance on it is evolving a little bit. For instance, there's this place called The Other End. It's a beer garden. They were permitted with 0 spots, none whatsoever. So that's operating under the presumption that not only do they not have any customers, they'll have no employees. Now, they don't have the benefit of a city municipal parking lot like these restaurants that were permitted with 18 and 16 and however many spots. So where they park, I have no clue. I do have an idea, actually, and it's on private property and not theirs. However, work has gotten the best of me, and I have not had the time to, I would hate to restrict the properties that have yet to utilize this outdoor dining exemption without a viable solution. Mr. Destin mentioned a private-public partnership, and I would like to have something like that in place out of fairness, so when we decide to change these regulations, hopefully in the near future make some kind of a change, we will have option on the table for the property owner to move forward with building restaurants. I'm just trying to operate out of fairness for certain properties that may not have utilized these loopholes and provide them with an option instead of shutting them down altogether. So I would ask that we move forward with the Crystal Beach regulations on the short-term rentals, on increasing that, and perhaps table the parking regulations until maybe I have more time, and I would look at maybe the first meeting in August. Well, you won't be here. That won't be good. So, second meeting in August, you won't be here either.
I'll be here second meeting,
If that's okay with the council,
God willing.
that would be my request. I hate to kick the can further down the road. I would just like to operate out of fairness for some property owners that I really do respect. And want to provide them with a viable option instead of just shutting them down. And I would present those options to the council.
You're talking about the short-term rental parking?
I'm talking about the outdoor dining exemption. I would like to have some.
This applies.
Your motion included both recommendations, Duffy, parking and the short-term rentals. You might not have realized that.
Page 3 goes into the issue of outdoor seating with no minimum required parking. So you've got, it's divided into both.
I was talking about the same, and basically Holiday Isle didn't have that anyway.
Yeah, and I went about the parking issue. There's a really strong argument for it, and I've laid it out before all of you for doing something about it. After I've laid out this argument, summer hits, and I haven't dedicated the time to this that I would have liked to give enough thought on how we might be able to find a solution to where we're not simply shutting down people who haven't.
Okay, then I'm certainly willing to amend my motion to just address short-term rental homes.
Sure, on south of 98.
South of 98, is that fair?
That's fair.
Sorry, who seconded this motion? Is that acceptable?
And I'll present to the council in the coming weeks, be it next meeting or a month from now or the second meeting in August. Hopefully I'll have something, since I feel like I was kind of the ringleader on the outdoor dining exemption. Because it is absurd. Don't get this restaurant open with 0 spots, as if the 18 spots weren't bad enough. So.
Is that clear? I amended it to just the short-term rentals, homes.
That's correct, short-term rentals only. Councilmember Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't really aware that this ordinance was going to put people out of business or hurt people that was already in business. I thought this was for people that was from tomorrow on that was putting in applications to build a business. So how are we, if this passes tonight for the parking requirements for outdoor seating, how is that putting anybody out of business or hurting a business that's already in operation?
He just wants to look at it.
According to the staff, this is only from here forward, for tomorrow forward.
It is, and I'm talking about property owners who have not yet developed. So I'm speaking of businesses that haven't opened. And if we pass this without a viable, like Mr. Destin mentioned, public-private partnership where they can purchase, transfer concurrency from their property to the city parking lot in some kind of partnership where we will actually receive compensation.
I thought this ordinance was to prevent someone from this day forward from going in, submit an application to build, say, a 500 square foot indoor restaurant with a 10,000 square foot open air seating that requires 0 parking for that. This ordinance is to make them have to have required parking for apparently a percentage of that outdoor dining.
But 95% of these properties in question have already taken advantage of this loophole. And out of fairness for the other 5%, I would like to offer a solution to it that could be mutually beneficial, not only to the property owner, but to the city. And honestly, this is, for me, better regulations is more of a long-term plan. So, and we're not going to see immediate effects from this in 5 years. There's just too many restaurants. The parking problem's too bad. There's too many restaurants that have utilized this exemption. My idea is 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if we keep good codes in place, over time, a restaurant's going to close. They close all the time, constantly. I bet you once a big one will close on the harbor after this season. I think one already has. So when they reopen to get their CO, they would then have to operate under the new regulations. And I just want to provide that 5% with an option, with a viable.
But can we single out that 5% and say, you can do it, but your next door neighbor can't do it? I just don't want to get into that, that big lawsuit. And then again, we're going right back to where, well, he built 260 feet in the air, so I should be able to build 260 feet in the air. So, I mean, when do we stop it? I mean, that's what I just don't understand, but I thought that's what this was all about.
I don't want to cut this off too quick, but it's already been excluded from the motion, so we're really arguing something that's not a part of the motion at this time. Is that correct? We may. Mr. Dixon, I'll let you back up again. Mr. Marner.
Thank you. Couple of questions. I know we're about the parking thing, but this has to do with the Crystal Beach. At one time, the Inn at Crystal Beach had a restaurant, and we had an outdoor parking discussion with this. I don't know if it was before your time, Mr. Shirley, or right after you came on board. I know Mr. Theriak was involved at that time, but we did restrict, I mean, I don't know if that's still in place in the Crystal Beach area that had to do with that particular building. You may not remember, but
I remember
do.
it. I was the attorney for that building, so
there you go.
I'm not allowed to get involved with that discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
The second thing is I was also under the impression that we were putting a checkbox, and this is for Holiday Isle and also for Crystal Beach. We were putting a checkbox that did they clear certain building things with the homeowners associations? In reference to what Mr. Tadlock and Mr. Sheldon were saying about the bigger homes on Holiday Isle. And I thought with whatever HOAs we have in Crystal Beach, that should have been done too. That they have to clear, certain things with the homeowners association, because there are, I'm sure Mr. Mayor Fisher was the former president on HOA. I'm sure there was some restrictions.
For clarification, we don't enforce private restrictive covenants, but the checkbox was just advising the applicant that they needed to check with the HOA to make sure that they were compliant with those standards. The city wasn't going to independently enforce those, but it was just going to flag the issue so that the landowner would know to go back to the HOA and check.
Did that happen with the project that Mr. Sheldon was talking about with no closets, or?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, can we find out? Because I'd like to find out, especially, I mean, if the HOA had talked about it, where we might have went wrong there, and I think the same thing should happen in Crystal Beach. If they get whatever HOAs, because if we're getting these houses and you've got the people that are part of those HOAs coming up here and saying, we didn't have a say-so, then that's where we're dropping the ball somewhere. And then, let's see, yeah, I think that was my only questions I had.
Just a clarification question. The house that we've been referring to, being as I guess the permit was actually approved yesterday, I'm not certain. Would it be affected by this proposal? You mentioned there was a freeze in here as part of it. Will that be?
No, sir, it would not.
Okay. Mr. Foreman.
I think my comment was intended earlier in the discussion, but I'll mention to the point that Mr. Morgan was talking about, the private-public partnerships. You could have satellite parking areas much easier than you can building a garage. You can find those locally, and they can be affordable with a impact fee perhaps, or perhaps even meters.
Councilmember Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I like what we're putting forth tonight. I see the parking requirement, especially in terms of the single-family residential areas, as something that perhaps we should look at citywide. And obviously, we can discuss that at a future time, but I don't think it's limited to just Crystal Beach. I think that's a situation, these super large homes, that affects many different areas, and if, we certainly wouldn't want it to go across the north and some of the older neighborhoods either. With that, Mr. Shelton earlier had mentioned that there was a permit approved for a 7-bedroom home with no closets. That to me shouts entertainment venue, not single-family residential. Now, was this permit approved in a single-family residential area?
That was approved on Holiday Isle yesterday, I believe.
If the council would indulge us, staff at this point is not sure what property is being referenced. They're not aware at this time of a residence built without the closets, but we will go back tomorrow and find out where that building is permitted and take a look again at the site plans that I suppose were permitted.
That would be great, because certainly that is not a single-family home if there's no closets in the bedrooms, and I think we could look maybe at, it's a commercial use. I don't know. I don't know how we work. Our attorney can handle that.
Well, we will research that
Yeah,
first.
that's a good
We will research that first thing in the morning, and I'll let the council know what we found out.
For clarity, Mr. Shelton, that's 3 Magnolia? Is that the address home we're talking about? And a
3
permit
Magnolia.
And permit was issued yesterday or today? Today, it was issued today.
It's a nightclub.
But technically, as far as the city's concerned, that permit will be under review.
We are going to determine the status of that permit or application, depending on what it is. And so I can't really say more than that without knowing anything about it at all.
Mr. Marler.
I forgot to mention one thing. Mr. Morgan, I've been advocating parking garages and stuff for years, and since we can't discuss it personally through the sunshine law, I've got some recommendations I'll send to Ms. Lejeune of ideas that I've had for the last couple of years about that, and so you can help form your opinion.
Mayor, I'm sorry, if I may. Kim, over here. Clerk?
Yeah. Oh, clerk.
Hello. I did not get what Kyron said at all just a second ago.
Okay,
And hold on. And also, audience handed me a copy of the permit. Did y'all want to look at it?
Okay.
I can repeat, Kim.
Okay, the motion
Okay,
is,
go ahead, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
I have some ideas that I would like to give to Mr. Morgan, and I'll go through the city manager to do such since we're barred from talking to each other outside of this meeting. All
Okay, thank you.
right.
okay. If we're prepared, we'll go ahead and take a vote. One question from the audience. If you wasn't president of Holiday Isle Homeowners Association, we wouldn't do this.
Honorable Mayor, just one comment, and I'm not real sure this is going to have any relevance or not, but every permit that's submitted to us, the owner or the applicant pleads that it's for his family, that it's single-family use. We've never had anybody come in and declare that what they're building, including the permit that you have in front of you, declare that this is for short-term rental. So I don't know exactly how you handle that relative to the some of the stipulations that you're putting on that. But just the opposite. They will never admit that this is going to be for short-term rental. They have large families or large extended families, and they want to build a 7 or 9 bedroom house. So let me leave that with you. And then the other thing I would like to mention is that you were right, Mayor, on the height issues, but the difference between Crystal Beach and also the Holiday Isle planning area. Ours is 40 feet overall. And to change that, I think would be a difficult thing for our planning area. And I think Crystal Beach is 35 now, and it's suggested that it goes to 30 at the cornice or the fascia board. So I'd like to leave that with you. We would actually like to see Holiday Isle stay at the 40 feet. It'd make things a lot simpler for us. Thank you very much.
It's been that way since the island was established, so for consistency purposes and in fact, the way the code is written, it would probably be better. No further discussion. Yes.
No. Come on. You can read it off. I just want to know what the yes is, we're doing this, no, we're not.
It's as stated, as read, with the addition of adding Holiday Isle.
Okay, good. All right, that's all I want to know.
And yes confirms.
Is this, we're voting for it to be brought up at a later date for further discussion?
This is to direct the staff to incorporate these proposed standards into a proposed code for your consideration at a later date, yes.
Without
the parking.
Without the commercial parking. This is short-term rental only, on the parking.
I promise I'm not going to pull a Tuffy and just keep kicking it down the road. I'm going to bring it back up eventually.
We'll let Tuffy do that. Would you all please continue voting?
I will have a thoughtful solution.
Well, my question is, we just heard from Mr. Tadlock, who is explaining why 35 or 30 would hurt. Do we want to go forward with something that we know that actually we just fought?
Let me just
It's for
interject.
all three aspects.
The height for Crystal Beach is consistent in here with the way theirs has been worded in the past. It's not consistent with Holiday Isle, so for Holiday Isle, you'd simply leave their code the way it is and
Okay, that's
modify
what I
Crystal
wanted
Beach
to make
only.
sure was in the motion.
Excuse me,
But
Mayor?
again, this will be a proposal.
Excuse me, Mayor. Could Mr. Shirley make a statement, please, sir?
This will come back to you in ordinance form, and we're going to have to work out a lot of different details when we include different areas of the city in this, south of 98. So you're going to see some tweaks to this, and that's going to be one of them, is to make sure we don't run afoul of your existing protective covenants in Holiday Isle. So we're going to make several changes. of that.
So it'll come back in ordinance, you'll have a first reading and a second reading to be able to approve the language, but mainly what this does now is that it makes both the Holiday Isle and the Crystal Beach areas zoning in progress, so that no new applications will now be accepted.
Mr. Dixon, if you'll vote, we can call the date. Unanimous, yes?
You were going to allow me to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In the Southern Building Code, whenever people are coming to submitting plans for these 9-bedroom homes, doesn't the Southern Building Code require some sort of even a hotel room's got a 2-foot closet. Does that not part of what we look at as far as, does bedrooms have closets? And isn't that part of what the Southern Building Code would require? And
We believe that you are correct.
So
So we're going to check into this first
we
thing
need to
tomorrow
stop
morning.
this and make sure that we don't have anything further than this. Okay, thank you.
Would the audience care to have any comments? Any member of the audience like to speak? You don't need to fill that out. Come on up. This is open.
My name is George Alonso, Mayor, council members. I live in Holiday Isle. I'm a member of the board, and I'm the architectural review, involved with the architectural review. Here you have the definition of a bedroom in Alabama. You need to have 2-8 wide and 4-8 window in each bedroom, and you have to have a closet. Here is the Georgia State's amendments. same thing. A window and a closet. There are several houses in Holiday Isle that they have remodeled, and in which we don't have to approve any permit for remodeling inside the house, which I think that's, and they have changed closets for bathrooms. That's something we need to take a look at too. I moved to Holiday Isle when I retired, orthopedic surgeon, and because it's a beautiful place to live and it's an incredible beach and fishing, and my family loves it here. And what I'm looking at is that we're building many hotels all throughout that area. So, yes, I think we need to have a closet, even though my closet in my house, my wife has a whole closet, but that's different. Thank you.
Would you give those to the county clerk, and she'll give us a copy of all of them? Yes, sir.
Dale Peterson, 948 Bambi Drive. Just something to consider, I think, whenever you look at this and you start going citywide with some of these thoughts, is every subdivision back here in Destin, no matter how long it's been here, it's almost all of them are 3 bedrooms. You don't build 2-bedroom houses. And so when you start looking at requiring smaller lot sizes, when you go into a subdivision that's already existing, you're going to have teeth missing in the design of the subdivision. I also would say that 3 parking spots for a 3-bedroom house, that's not what's going on back in the subdivisions that we all live in Destin. Just so consider when you start going citywide, it's different. And I do applaud you for the, because there's no question we have a parking problem. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the audience? Adjourned. 8:50.